Hello guys and welcome again to my channel. So I am now again in my not so comfortable zone. So this is again a video that we are going to use a PowerPoint. So this is actually a support on a certain lecture video that I made, the transaction cycles, which showcases the transaction cycles normally of a company, like purchasing and disbursement cycle, and the sales and collection cycle, as well as the payroll cycle. Okay, so I would like to start to present this. So in there I have a lecture. Okay, before we go forward, this is the thumbnail of that lecture video. So the goal of this particular video right now is to let you see what are the forms that have been talked about in that particular lecture video, so that you will see a touch of realism again. So realistically, these are the forms that you will see in the companies. Like for example, we start with the purchase requisition form. So again, the purchase requisition is coming from the user departments. So you can put here the PR number, and if it is from, for example, HR 2025-001, and then the request date, and then who is the ones requesting. Sometimes in a department, there is a particular person assigned to request items, and the date required, so that they will know that you really need them. Like for example, we will request bond paper, you should put the date required, and then the department, and then the code, the quantity, particulars, and the purpose, if ever. Normally the purpose has a, what do we call this, a bigger space. Particulars and purpose, you can use these two columns if ever. So I am choosing the simple formats, or the simple forms, the straightforward forms. There are forms in other companies that put in other details also aside from these things. Okay, so that's purchase requisition form. And then after the purchase request has been filled up, normally I told you that it will go to the purchasing in charge or purchasing department for approval. And if it is an unusual item, sometimes it is to be approved by a higher authority or top management. Okay, and if it goes to the purchasing department already, normally the purchasing department will make this canvas sheet. So canvas sheet is naturally a paper that will be sent to prospective suppliers if ever. So there are items, the quantity, technical specification, like for example, if brand is needed, or technical specification, I'm not very particular with that. Like for example, if you are going to buy some computer parts, of course you have to specify what is that. Okay, and then the amount, this is to be filled up already by the supplier and the brand. Okay, so signature, name of the supplier, address of the supplier, email address, contact. So again, this is the simplest canvas sheet form that I have seen in the internet, and we are going to use this in this particular lecture video. But in some other companies, there are a lot of information included, not only this, because sometimes there is still, what do we call, enrollment of the suppliers, whereby it's not only this name of the supplier, address, email address. It's not only this. Sometimes the bank account number and etc. is needed. Like aside from this, there is really a formal profile of the supplier. So basically, what I'm letting you see is the basic template of the canvas sheet. Okay, now if ever you have already canvassed and you already know who is the winner, based on the price, based on the quality that they're offering, you will make a purchase order if you are the purchasing department. And this is the address of the what do we call this? This purchase order is addressed, of course, of the supplier here, because you're going to send it to the supplier, and then the address where to deliver the items, the order date, and there is a delivery date something. Basically, in the purchase order, this is the simplest one, but in the purchase order that I've seen in real life, as an office worker, there are things that are here, like for example, the terms in which the purchased item should be delivered because it's very needed, as well as there are some sentences that will let you understand that the purchase order is actually a contract between you as the purchaser and the supplier. Okay? So that's it for the purchase order. Again, if they receive this acts actually as a contract of the seller and the buyer. You as the buyer and the supplier as the seller. Okay? So that's it. Sometimes it includes payment terms. Like, if this is delivered now, 30 days later, you will be paid through check or through bank transfer. So, again, this is a basic template for purchase order. So, next one, after the purchase order has been sent, sometimes the supplier, if all of the items being purchased are available, they're going to deliver it. Sometimes they make a delivery receipt and the goods, and also the bill if ever there is a bill. Now, the goods, in order for it to be sure that that is the real goods that we were after as the purchaser, we will assign an employee who will make this goods receiving report, if you can still remember in our transaction cycle discussion. So that particular person will describe what he has received. Like for example, when did he receive the items? March 28, 2023, 11 a.m. The name of the supplier is this one, and the shipper and the purchase order that it is related to is this one. So, the person assigned to make this goods receiving report will inspect the goods basically. So, what is that? Cotton, quantity, and then description, if ever it is in good condition, if ever, and etc. Okay? So, the details of the purchase order is actually kept from the person assigned to make this goods receiving report, so that he will not copy the details there, because the goods receiving report should be a result of a thorough inspection for damages, for the quantity, for the color, and etc. Okay? Now, this is a basic goods receiving report. Sometimes there are still other information in here, like the description is very much specified. Okay? Now, if you are the accounting department, normally it will go to your office. You will have a copy of the purchase request if ever, the purchase order if ever, and the canvas sheet and everything that we've talked about before. Okay, before this goods receiving report. And the goods receiving report will also go to the accounting department. Now, if everything checks out, like the purchase request, the purchase order, the details of those, plus the goods receiving report is coinciding with the purchase order and the purchase request, and then the delivery receipt or invoice from the supplier, if they are going to send it, checks out also. Normally, the accounting department will make a check voucher or cash voucher. So check voucher, it means, or disbursement voucher, it means it is ready for payment because everything checks out already. So it is just an order to make a check already. So you put in the payee, and then the particulars, and then the amount, and then the account title to be debited and credited, something like that. So this is to be made by the accounting department if everything checks out of the purchase already. Okay, so again, it could be a disbursement voucher, it could be a cash voucher, depending on the policies of the company. Okay? Now, next is if the check voucher is already approved by different people, by different approvers, then a check is drafted. So this is an example of a check from Metro Bank. The pay to the order of the person or a company, and then the amount, and then the date, and then in words, the check amount should be put in words also. So this should be coinciding with these numerical figures, because if ever they are not, then this will be cancelled. So after having that check, of course, if we are going to pay this to the seller or the supplier, they will give this service invoice. Here in the Philippines, it's already service invoice. In the past, there are two types. If you are selling services, the seller would give official receipt, and if the seller is selling goods, that would be sales invoice. Right now, it was changed into service invoice. Whether you sell services or goods, you have to issue the same form, service invoice. Okay? And this is the billing invoice format. So on the service invoice, we have the number, of course, and then the particulars and the amount. So we have gross sales if ever there are a lot of items purchased. So we have the gross sales less the withholding tax. Of course, there will be an addition of VAT if ever Maria Santos in here is actually vatable. In here, in our example, she is a non-VAT. So there is no VAT added here. But if Maria Santos is VAT registered, there will be a VAT here. And then received from the customer, the address of the customer, tax identification of the customer, and the sum. For example, this check is the ones paid. So the sum of 12,345,678. So that will be put right here. The words and then the numerical figures is in here. In full or partial payment for the purchase of the items specified on the left side, authorized signature. And of course, we have also a billing invoice. So if ever you have already given the goods and the services as a seller, and then you wanted to collect, you would bill. Okay? Sometimes, you put this, including with the delivery receipt, in the goods that you have delivered. Sometimes, the companies or the suppliers or the sellers are doing that. Upon transferring the goods, they are also attaching this billing invoice. Some also are serving this billing invoice separately from the goods. Okay? So, lastly, I don't know if this is the last. Maybe it is. We have a remittance advice. Like for example, if you are a purchaser and then you are going to send a check as a payment, so the check will go definitely to the treasurer or the treasury department of the supplier. So the accounting department of the supplier might need this remittance advice because the accounting department doesn't usually receive checks. So what they will receive is this remittance advice that should be made by the purchaser. So if you are the purchaser, you have to write a remittance advice wherein you put in the supplier's name, address, and the PO related. So if you have received any billing invoices, so you specify it here because maybe you are paying one time related to different invoices. So invoice 004, 008, 009, and then this is the payment, and then the total is 1,200,000, so the check is 1,200,000, so that is already covering 3 types of invoices. And then the payment method is by check, the payment date, and etc. So this is to be prepared by the purchaser. And of course, if there is already a remittance advice that will be coming to the accounting department of the supplier, they could already make appropriate entries. Okay? So that's it for this video. So at least you'll be able to add some realistic feels on the transaction cycle lecture video that I made. So if you learned, please click like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And of course, share it to those who needs it. Thank you for watching, and see you on my next one.